Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Hi, I'm Mary Morton, and I'm going to demonstrate Ukrainian egg decorating, or known as pasanki. The pasanki was always done by the women, and they would get together and spend the day making these beautiful eggs in the spring. It started off as a spring celebration before Christianity. And when the Christianity came in, then they adopted a lot of the symbols over to that. You see a lot of spiders and sunshine shapes on these. Spiders were thought to be good luck. This would be a sample of a spider or a sunshine. The eggs are done with beeswax and a tool called a kiska. The old style kiskas are copper rolled around into make a little funnel and wired on with copper wire on a piece of wood. And in recent times we have gone to the electric kiskas, which are like this. With the electric one, we have to use colored beeswax, and they dye it black. The ladies that used to do these back in the Ukraine, when they would get together, they would spend the entire day doing these because they had to do enough eggs to last the entire year. These eggs are raw and saved just for their beauty. They believed that they brought good luck. They would give them to a newborn baby. They would put an egg in the casket of a family member or a friend who had died. They would bury some in the ground out in the fields because it was supposed to ensure a good crop. They would put one underneath the beehive so that they would get lots of honey. They would put them in the barn to protect the animals and to protect the barn from fire or lightning. They would also put one above their door in their home to protect the people who lived inside and to protect their house from fire. As you can see, there's a lot of different colors, range from light yellow to black. And as you can see, if you're lucky, the black comes out very black. It's done on a brown or blue egg, one of the colored eggs like this, so the background colors are not actually white. They're the color of the egg. And then it's got the blue and black. And sometimes you get what they call happy mistakes because the shells take colors differently. And this fish is supposed to be in water, and it kind of turned out like water. And when they did the eggs, the mostly dark ones, like that one or this one, were usually saved to put in a casket or given to an older person because it symbolized that it was a life written upon. And these would symbolize the gates to heaven along with the Trinity, the three triangle. But if you were giving one to a newborn baby, you would use one like one of these with a lot of white on it because it symbolized a clean slate waiting to be written upon. So I dry the eggs. You could blow them out too, but then you'd have to seal the ends when you dye them. Otherwise the dye would soak inside of the shell and then you would lose the effect. So I just dry them out, and you can hear the hollow egg inside. Well, it's not hollow, it's hardened inside, and it's the yolk. And it just dries up, shrivels up, and will keep indefinitely. Our tradition of coloring Easter eggs originates from the Ukraine. These were just done to keep, to give. They would frequently have them blessed by the church. The girls would pick their prettiest egg and give to the boy that they thought was the cutest or the nicest, the one they hoped would pay attention to them. The boys used to like to see who got the most beautiful eggs. And then the eggs that nobody liked, they sometimes would play games with, and the boys would, well, I guess all of the kids would, they would play a game of toss the egg back and forth and see who was the last one to be able to catch the whole egg. When they had the broken shells, the girls would take those shells down to the river, and they would toss them into the river. And if the eggshells sank in the river, then they were out of luck for the year. They weren't going to find a boyfriend. But if the shells floated across the river, then their love was going to come from across the river. And if they floated downstream, well, then he was coming from somewhere downstream. So when you start off to do an egg design, they're mostly geometric, and you will start off by dividing your egg in half this way, in half this way, and in half this way. And then you have your sections from which you can then go to this egg here and put in the sections like that, which would be this one, by doing a meridian line around that way and this way, and then doing parallel lines to those. So it's really much easier than it looks. We'll do the basic triangle design or star shape. So we're going to do a line starting there and just laying the wax on. And the hotter the wax, the better it'll flow. And if you drop wax on your egg, it becomes part of the design because you cannot remove it. Even scratching it off isn't going to help. Now when I go to buy eggs to do this with, I'm the person you see in the grocery store going through the eggs and checking them before I buy them, because I don't want any with flaws in, because that will be the point at which they'll crack. And when I get them home, I go through my eggs and I candle them. And people who lived on farms know that that means that they hold them up to the light and look through the shell. So I hold mine up to the light and I look, and you can see little dark lines that would be a flaw in the shell. And if I find flaws in them, then those are the ones I use to cook with. And the ones that have perfect shells, I put back in the egg carton and I put them away to dry. Now the eggs will dry out depending on the thickness of the shell. Could take anywhere from a year to several years. And I let them dry, and the insides will become hard. And some of these that I have, you can actually feel they're very light. One of them I picked up here earlier, you could hear it, it shook. And it's just the insides that are loose in there. So once you have all of the white lines on, then you would dye it into the next color, and it should be the next lighter color in your line, possibly the yellow or orange color. Okay, so what is on covered black now will remain white because the dye will not soak into the shell where there is wax. So on this egg, all of this was covered in black wax that's white, and then it was dyed into pink. And then the pink was filled in. What's pink here now was covered with black wax. And then it was dyed into the purple. And after the purple, then all the wax was removed, and then you see the pink and the white underneath. So as you're doing these eggs, you have to think in reverse, because what you're doing first is the lightest color, but you're working from lightest to darkest, and yet what you see, you're putting the dark on, but it's really the light. Now this one was done with the dyed wax, so the black is not as black. But when you go to take the wax off, then you will actually see the design. The thing I enjoy the most about Ukrainian egg decorating is when the final die is on and you can take the wax off and see the beautiful design that you've made underneath. It's always a surprise. It's never quite what you expect.
If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.